Receptors are the nerve endings which carry information to the neurons, and we can classify receptors by various methods. First way of classification is there are of three types: neuroepithelial receptors, then epithelial receptor and neural receptor. So the neuroepithelial receptors are one in which the stimulus generated in the epithelial cells is carried by the axons to the second order neuron. Example is olfactory epithelium. Then the second variety is epithelial receptor. So the epithelial cell themselves conduct the stimuli to nerve cells, and they are constantly dividing, mitotically dividing and replacing the older cells. Example is taste buds present in the tongue, organ of Corti in the internal ear, rods and cones in the retina of the eyeball. Then the third variety is neural receptor. Example is skin. The sensory afferent fibers, they conduct the nerve impulse to the nerve cells in dorsal root ganglia. So these are neural receptors. Then second way of classifying is there can be thermoreceptors which detect the change in temperature, mechanoreceptors, they are stimulated by touch, pressure, photoreceptors conduct light waves, and nociceptor conduct pain. Then the third method of classifying is exteroceptive, interoceptor and proprioceptor. So exteroceptor means they are stimulated from external or from surroundings, and they are conducted to the central nervous system. Example is skin. Skin conducts the impulse of touch, pain, temperature. Then special sense organs conduct stimuli like light by the retina, sound by organ of Corti, smell by the olfactory neurons, taste by the taste buds present on the tongue. So they will carry the impulses to the central neurons, that is exteroceptors. Then second is interoceptor. They are present in hollow tubes and body viscera. And third is proprioceptor. They are present in bones, muscle, ligament, joints. They are also known as kinesthetic receptors because they carry sensation like joint movement, joint position, and they can also detect the mechanical disturbances. A neuron conveys message to another neuron or effector cell through synapse. The synapse is specialized area, or it is the junction between two neurons. And based on the mode of conduction of nerve impulse, these synapses can be classified as chemical and electrical synapse. Chemical synapse requires neurotransmitters, and here the gap junction is absent. The components of chemical synapse, as you can see in the diagram, are presynaptic element, that is presynaptic knob. It is present on the presynaptic neuron that releases the neurotransmitter, and the presynaptic element stores neurotransmitter in synaptic vesicles. Then we have synaptic cleft. It is a narrow gap of about 20 to 30 nanometer between the presynaptic and postsynaptic neuron. Neurotransmitter needs to cross this synaptic cleft. And then we have the postsynaptic membrane or process. It is the membrane of postsynaptic neuron that has receptors for neurotransmitters. Then the second variety is, or the second second type of synapse is electrical. It does not require neurotransmitter, and here the gap junction is present. Impulse transmission takes place in both the directions, and electrical synapse involves passage of electrical signal from one neuron to another neuron by the gap junction, and the electrical synapse do not have neurotransmitter release in them. Examples are gap junctions of cardiac and smooth muscles. There we have the electrical synapse. And now a new concept has developed, that is porocytosis. It is the process of secretion of neurotransmitters through the pores created by calcium ion between the secretory vesicles and presynaptic membrane. Previously, we used to say that the secretory vesicles fuse with the presynaptic membrane and it releases neurotransmitter. In previous slide, we have seen the mode of conduction of nerve impulse helps in classifying the synapse into chemical and electrical. The second way of classifying synapse is morphological classification. So we can see in the diagram, well labeled diagram, the classification is exodendritic synapse. It is the most common type of synapse in which the axon of one neuron synapses with the dendrite of another neuron. Then second is exosomatic synapse. Axon conveys impulse to the soma of the another neuron. Third is exoaxontic synapse. It is the synapse between two axons. Then dendroaxonic synapse. It is the synapse between dendrite of presynaptic neuron and axon of postsynaptic neuron. It is commonly seen in thalamus. Then the fifth variety is dendrodendritic synapse, synapse between two dendrites. Then somatosomatic synapse means synapse between the bodies of two neurons. Somatodendritic synapse is the synapse between soma and dendrite of postsynaptic neuron. The synapse is not distinguishable on routine HNE staining. We have the boutons in the terminal part of the axon. We can see the presynaptic neuron makes several contacts with the postsynaptic neuron, and these contacts are known as boutons. Then we can use silver staining, that is Golgi method, where the synapse is visible as oval body. And we also have a term called bouton terminal. It is the enlarged terminal part of the axon. It is known as bouton terminal. Peripheral nerve is collection of many nerve fibers, and these nerve fibers are held together by connective tissue. The nerve fiber with Schwann cell and basal lamina is the basic structural unit of each peripheral nerve, and a single nerve fiber of such peripheral nerve is surrounded by thin connective tissue called endoneurium. So it is the innermost covering. Endoneurium consists of loose connective tissue with collagen fibrils, fibroblasts, mast cells and macrophages. When we see the peripheral nerve section histologically, about 90% of the nuclei that you can see are of Schwann cell, and only 10% contributes to the connective tissue cells. Thus, a group of nerve fibers form a nerve fascicle or the nerve bundle, and such nerve fascicles are surrounded by specialized connective tissue known as perineurium. This perineurium is made up of flat squamous perineural cells, and these cells are arranged in two or more layers, and they externally they are covered by basal lamella. These cells are connected with each other by tight junction, hence they form blood-nerve barrier. And many such fascicles are held together by dense irregular connective tissue known as epineurium. Epineurium is the outermost covering of the peripheral nerve, and the epineurium surrounds entire peripheral nerve, and it mainly contains blood vessels that supply the nerve. Blood vessel, as we know, vasa nervorum, they are present in the epineurium and perineurium. Endoneurium does not have blood vessel. The nerve fiber receives nutrition by diffusion through endoneurium. So the blood vessels are present only in epineurium and perineurium, not in the endoneurium. With routine HNE staining, myelin is washed away, so we cannot see myelin sheath with routine HNE staining. Thus, we use special stains like osmium tetroxide, and By staining with such special stain, the myelin sheath appears black in color. With HNE staining, the axon, endoneurium, perineurium, epineurium, these all are stained and we can visualize this connective tissue. But the myelin sheath gives empty appearance, and for that we use special stain known as osmium tetroxide, which gives black stain to the myelin sheath. Then we have some applied significance related to peripheral nerves. So first is leprosy bacilli. It attacks the nerves by entering skin in the endoneurium. They start damaging Schwann cells. The motor fibers, sensory fibers start degenerating when the bacilli invades the adjacent endoneural tubes. Then the second clinical entity is Fraze syndrome. So if there is any penetrating wound in the parotid gland, it damages two nerves, auriculotemporal nerve and great auricular nerve. And during the process of healing, we know that the great auricular nerve supplies skin over the parotid gland, and it is the branch of cervical plexus, whereas auriculotemporal nerve forms the secretomotor pathway. It helps in secretion of saliva. So these are supplying the parotid gland. Now when there is injury to the parotid gland, it damages both these nerves, and during process of healing, the secretomotor fibers of auriculotemporal nerve grow and they join with the fibers of great auricular nerve, and through these fibers they reach the facial skin. So when the patient eats, there are beads of perspiration occurring because there is simultaneous secretion of saliva, and it also stimulates the greater auricular nerve and it causes sweat secretion. So whenever the person eats, along with salivation there is sweat secretion also, and this is known as Fraze syndrome. So this pathology is related to the peripheral nerve. Nerve fibers are of two types, motor fibers or efferent nerve fibers. They are the axons that carry impulse away from the central nervous system to the muscles or glands. The cell body of such motor neurons lie in the central nervous system, especially in the gray matter of the spinal cord and brainstem. And the second type of nerve fiber is afferent or sensory nerve fiber. These are the nerve process or axons that carry impulses towards the central nervous system. So they come from periphery towards the central nervous system. The nerve cell bodies of afferent nerve fibers lie in the sensory ganglion. Whenever there is aggregation of cell body of neuron inside the central nervous system, it is known as nuclei, and when the aggregation of cell body of neuron occurs outside the central nervous system, it is known as ganglion. So the ganglion is aggregation of cell bodies of neurons outside the central nervous system, and these ganglia are of two types, sensory ganglia and autonomic ganglia. The sensory ganglia are present outside central nervous system, and these are carrying impulses towards the central nervous system, means these are forming afferent pathway, and they have pseudo-unipolar neurons in them, except the vestibulocochlear ganglia, it has bipolar neuron. Rest of the sensory ganglia are pseudo-unipolar. Example of sensory ganglion is dorsal root ganglia of spinal nerve, then the sensory ganglia of cranial nerves like trigeminal nerve, facial nerve, vestibulocochlear nerve, glossopharyngeal nerve and vagus. So these are all examples of sensory ganglia. When we see the sensory ganglia under microscope, we can see pseudo-unipolar neurons having a peripheral process carrying information from sensory receptor and central process that receives the information to to the central nervous system. With H&E staining, the sensory ganglia shows large pseudo-unipolar neurons, and these neurons are forming clusters. They are present in groups, and mostly they are present at the periphery of the ganglia. Nucleus of the neuron are large, vesicular, and these are centrally placed. Note that the nuclei of sensory ganglia are centrally placed, whereas in the autonomic ganglia, these are eccentrically placed. So this is point of differentiation. Then the cluster of neurons are separated by bundles of myelinated thick nerve fibers, and we can also see satellite cells or capsular cells surrounding the neuronal bodies. The satellite cells are more prominent in sensory ganglia, and they are forming nearly a ring or a capsule surrounding the neuronal body. And the satellite cells are flattened low-cuboidal cells that surround the neuronal body, and the ganglion is then covered by fine connective tissue capsule. Autonomic ganglia supplies the smooth muscles of internal organs and glands. Autonomic nervous system shows two types of neurons, preganglionic and postganglionic neurons. The preganglionic neurons lie in the central nervous system, and their axons extend from central nervous system to autonomic ganglion, whereas the postganglionic neurons lie in autonomic ganglia, and their axons supply the smooth muscle cells and glands. And the autonomic nervous system is further divided into sympathetic and parasympathetic. So the sympathetic ganglia, example of sympathetic ganglia are the sympathetic trunk in the paravertebral region. We have the celiac, superior mesenteric, inferior mesenteric ganglia, then aortico-renal ganglia, and adrenal medulla is also example of sympathetic ganglia. And the example of parasympathetic ganglia are ciliary ganglion, submandibular ganglion, otic ganglion, and pterygopalatine ganglion. Also, the terminal ganglia lie near the organs. As postganglionic autonomic neurons synthesize catecholamines, the mesial granules are more prominently seen in their cytoplasm. When we see under low power microscope, means histologically, the autonomic ganglia appear smaller than the sensory ganglion, and on H&E staining they are multipolar, small, irregular postganglionic neurons, and they are scattered throughout the ganglia. These neurons are separated from each other by discrete bundle of unmyelinated thin nerve fibers. Here the nuclei of the neuron is large, pale staining with prominent nucleus, and most important is the nucleus is eccentrically placed in the cytoplasm. We can also see few satellite cells surrounding the neural body. Few cells are seen surrounding each nerve cell body, but these cells do not form a complete capsule. And the reason is that autonomic ganglia, these are multipolar. They have numerous processes, and these processes will break the continuity of capsule. And the autonomic neurons have synapses in their ganglia. And if we compare it with the sensory ganglia, in the sensory ganglia, the satellite cells form complete capsule. It is nearly complete because in the sensory ganglia, these are pseudo-unipolar. They do not have many processes. So it can form a complete ring around the sensory neuron. The sensory neurons do not synapse in the ganglia. Also, the ganglia is surrounded by connective tissue capsule, and on routine H&E staining we can see only the nucleus of the neurons. To see the cell processes, we have to use special staining like metallic impregnation. Silver staining is useful for visualizing the process of the neurons. In this slide, we have tabulated the difference between sensory and autonomic ganglia. So the sensory ganglia are pseudo-unipolar, large spherical, and they have large vesicular centrally placed nucleus. The satellite cells form a complete ring around the neuronal bodies, whereas the autonomic, specifically the sympathetic ganglia, are multipolar, small, irregular, and they have large eccentrically placed nucleus, and it has few satellite cells. The satellite cells do not form complete ring of a capsule around the neuronal body, as it is multipolar and it has many processes. The neuronal groups are clustered in sensory ganglia and they are scattered in autonomic ganglia. The nerve fibers are present in bundles that separate the clusters of neuron in sensory ganglia, and the nerve fibers are present between scattered neurons in autonomic ganglia. So this is the basic difference or a point of identification and differentiation between the sensory and autonomic ganglia.